Over the years, I have walked with some younger women, and one of the things that I have really had to like work on and cultivate is being a good listener. I don't know about y'all, but I have a tendency, or had, I'm going to say past tense because I'm going to say I work on it, had a tendency to be listening to younger women, especially when I was younger. I wanted to show how wise I was maybe or something, and just to be listening with the intention of answering. And so I was in, like, I had a group of friends. We were all in our early 20s, maybe like mid 20s, and we had kids and we're hanging out, and I had this friend, and she kind of just said, I don't want you to fix it. I just want you to listen to me. And it was about her husband. And I thought, well, I'll just give her all the best advice she's ever gotten right now, you know? But it really impacted me because I thought, man, like when we're younger and we're trying to learn how to be a good friend or be a mom or whatever, this is a skill we need, you know? So how have you learned to be a good listener before you jump in and offer advice?
I'm going to say that's probably still a struggle that I would say that I might have, because I do not want to give advice, but I'm always thinking about, I feel like this would be a good thing for you if I would just say it out loud and you'd go, and I don't, I find people fascinating. So I feel like I'm pretty good at, if I'm listening to someone talking, I just want to ask the next question of, well, tell me about that. And then, but that sometimes leads to me wanting to say something. But I heard a thing just the other day that if you use the acronym WAIT, why am I talking? That, right? And it actually was with your kids, adult children, which probably would go well with, just young mothers or younger girls that we're talking with, that sometimes they don't really need for you to talk. And if I just give a hot second, then they'll continue on without me having to goad something on or say my thing that makes them then want to just stop. So I do think that's been a big work in progress of just knowing when to stop talking so that they can continue to talk.
Yeah.
I think that when I take my own personal experience of, I just want you to listen. I don't want to hear your advice right now. I just want to talk about it. I just want to process it and not necessarily have an answer to what my problem is. And if you can remember that when you're talking to someone younger, struggling with, a marriage or children issues or what have you, that's really, go back to when we were there and remember, I don't need you to fix this. I really just need to process through it. My husband's really good at that with our children. He does not give advice unless he's asked for it. And that's hard to do. I think another thing is giving an example of how you have been in that certain situation is helpful. It makes them feel like they're not alone and gives them a place to open up and share a little bit more.
Yeah. I think one question I would have with that, or one kind of thing that I would note, is that your kids are grown.
Sure.
So I wanted to clarify that for the young moms. Your kids are grown, and so even trying to figure out balancing that part when they're younger.
Yeah.
When do they need me to coach and parent, and when do they just need me to listen? And I think part of that is just having some discernment. It's like watching their face, looking for clues when they're young. Because I wish I could say I did it right every time, but you could see their little face just fall when you're like, well, you know what you need.
Yeah.
You need da-da-da. So
For sure.
When they're adults, though, I think I love that acronym. Wait, I'm going to use that.
Right.
As a tool.
Right, because if you do answer that question for yourself, because there's sometimes when you do need to speak.
Right.
And then there are other times when you don't need to speak. And to your point, I think, too, I wished I would have been more conscious of that my children were wholly different. And when it comes to things like that.
Yeah.
I got one that just really needs to talk and have me say absolutely nothing. And then the other one would like for me to
really weigh in.
The reason she calls and asks is because she would like for me to
That's
know.
good.
And I'm going to say when they were younger, as I look back on it, when they were younger, that's really the same thing.
They were similar.
Yeah.
How about you?
I think for me, I've just learned that giving someone my full attention and just listening shows that I value them. That I'm willing to look them in the eye, willing to listen and just hear what they're saying. That I think there's just a lot of people who don't feel like people hear them, or they don't feel valued, that their voice is not important. So I don't feel that I often have good advice to give. A lot of times I'm like, I have no idea what you should do, but I'm willing to sit here and listen to you and hear what you have to say.
That's good.
That's good.
Do you think, or maybe I should set it up like this too, that I think that's a skill. So when you were saying that you really pay attention, I was thinking about Casey and I, my husband, and I led this class on healthy communication, and one whole unit is on learning to listen. That unit has more practical tools than the other units. Isn't that funny? So one practical tool is eye contact, put your phone away. Another one was repeat back, not verbatim. But what I heard you say was blah, 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 because there's so much miscommunication even in, sometimes, especially maybe in a marriage or in a child context where there's hurt already and they say, I like your sweater. And you go, what does that mean? You didn't like my sweater yesterday, or whatever. And they're like, well, I'm just trying to tell you, I like your sweater. So some of those tools we practiced in front of people. But when we practiced, so like I thought I had it, we stood up in front of the group and we start doing this practice thing. And I was like, wow, I actually really do the things that I'm practicing poorly, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so one thing that I've been really conscious of is not interrupting. I don't do a very good job of that still. I was working with my friend the other day and she was like, wait, I just want to tell you the whole thing before you interrupt. And I thought, oh, I'm doing it. I'm just jumping in. So I don't know. I think, what do you do to gauge that? How do you keep yourself from?
Don't you think so I feel like when I read, my mind is reading ahead before if I was reading out loud. Sometimes I hated reading out loud because I would get ahead in my mind than my speaking. So I feel like sometimes, you were saying when you can be with somebody and tell them something that you've gone through, the thing I've had to stop myself to do is to because I'm thinking, if that were me, we were big, put yourself in the other people's shoe, people at our house, anytime anything came up, you always want to look at the other side before you made your thing. But in doing that, sometimes when you're listening to somebody talk, I'm thinking, oh, I have a thing exactly like that. And I'm going to tell that. And sometimes that's a great thing. And other times it just wholly negates because mine's bigger and better.
Yeah.
And I did it. So it is tricky. I do think it's a learned skill of doing that. And I do think some people are much better at it just naturally. Because like I'm saying, always for me, even as a child, my mind's always ahead of what's actually super in front of me here. And so it is totally not thinking while they're just listening.
Yeah.
Well, I think you brought up a good point. And what you said is we put ourselves in their shoes. So I think the real heart behind this question is, why is it important to be a good listener? Especially in the context, obviously, of relationships. And so it's different if I'm making my order at Chick-fil-A or something, not that I want to dishonor that person. I don't mean that at all. But if I'm really trying to engage in a relationship, why is it important to be a good listener? What are your thoughts on that? How does it affect the relationship?
Well, I think relationships are a two-way street. It's give and take. It's, ebb and flow. And we have to both be participants in that. I have to be able to say what I need to say, and the other person needs to be able to say what they want to say. And I think, too, that the temptation a lot of times is to make a conversation about ourselves. And so what you're saying to me, oh yes, I can relate to that. Or I can, this happened to me, and I take away what you're saying and start to make it about me and what I've done or what I have experienced. Maybe that's not what you need. And sometimes we're just trying to connect with that person, but I think when someone's speaking to us and we are already formulating in our mind what we're going to say, are we really listening still?
Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
Well, I think it builds trust too. And that's one of the key things is, especially so in this last year, I've really been walking through like the worst thing that you could walk through. And I've realized quickly, like there are some people that, and it doesn't have anything to do with them. Like it's not a judgment. It's where's a safe place for my heart? It is right now, I have to find the safest place for my heart as I process this. And quickly you start talking to people and you're like, oh, okay, when I talk to this person, they want to be sure to tell me that it's going to be okay, or that, there's hope, or they want to kind of give me a quick answer. And when I want that, when I'm like, geez, I'm feeling hopeless, then maybe that would be the person that I would call. But when I'm feeling, just like this is so hard, and I just want to say, this is like so hard. It's the worst thing that I've ever gone through. I want someone to say, it is hard. And then that just builds that trust for me. Like that's a safe place. And I think when we're young, we're not thinking in those terms yet. We're 23 or we're 24 and we're thinking about, I don't know, I thought I knew everything then, and I just had to share a lot of wisdom. And now when I've started to think, man, am I a soft spot for this person? I want to speak truth.
That's good.
I want to speak truth. I'm not going to shy away if something is detrimental to their health kind of thinking or whatever. But I can do that without making them feel unsafe. Am I a soft place?
That's good. That's real good. Yeah.
Thank you, ladies.
Now I'm thinking, am I a soft place?
You are. You are. Great conversation. Thank you, ladies.